Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience, where we discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. I am Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience, and I'm excited to kick off this season, the new season of Branding Experience, with a cool guy. I know it's a bad joke, but I got Neil Cool with me, who is the principal and CEO at Structure First. He co-founded Structure First in 2011 as an alternative to traditional design build for financial institutions, which I find really interesting. So let's dig into it. Neil, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So yeah, I gotta ask you. You've been running Structure First for 10 years. You co-founded that business. Has anything changed in the last 10 years in terms of structuring buildings for financial institutions, man?
Absolutely, it's changing every day, as you probably well know. It's obviously technology is driving the bus right now, and how you infuse that amongst your facilities and kind of meshing the old and the new is it's a bit of a pill. Can be a pill. So we help that.
Yeah, and as we're recording this now around mid-August 2021, we're really in a weird situation because we not only had to deal with COVID and shutdowns and sending everybody home, and then we kind of started talking about, well, let's do some kind of a mix, where we have some people at home and we have some people in the building, and now we don't know what the hell to do. It's like, well, we keep them home. We got a Delta variant running around. Right. Do we build this new building? Yeah, how does that affect your business, man?
Well, it's been interesting for sure, and I think what is the word of the day as it relates to all that is flexibility. And spaces have to be flexible. And what was 80s, 90s, even 2000s, your traditional teller lines and traditional branches, and even headquarters locations with hard-walled offices, and then we went to open concepts. There's all different ways to do it, but I think the thing that we've found through this process over 10 years, and then certainly within the last couple with COVID, is you got to remain flexible. And if you can remain flexible, it allows you to pivot, when times change. And I think that's going to continue regardless of what transpires with COVID, and hopefully this, we're getting past all this, and this variant won't be as bad as they're making it out to be. But that being said, you just have to be flexible.
Yeah, flexibility, pivot, adapt. I don't know whether those words have become annoying during the pandemic, or just kind of like, Kleenex, hand me a Kleenex. Hey, pivot. Right. But it's my belief, given your expertise being much better at this subject than I would have, but it's my belief as a brand expert that there is still a place for brick and mortar. Now that's kind of changed a little bit, but even with tech and not just credit unions and banks and financial institutions in general changing, but retail has really changed. Everybody can buy stuff on Amazon or eBay or what have you. You don't have to walk into a Walmart, and I don't even think Kmart's are even around, or even Sears. So in your perspective, from a branding perspective, where does brick and mortar retail fit?
I think it's a great question, and my perspective on that is if you're a community financial institution, credit union or bank, if you're going to compete in a market with the B of A's of the world, the bigger financial institutions out there, you have to have a presence locally. You have to have that brick and mortar locally. Now, whether people actually walk into it or not, it's a great question. And I know obviously we can all do transactions in 1,000 different spots, but when somebody needs to talk to you, that location needs to be there, and it needs to be there from a branding standpoint, because if I just go all tech and I'm a community financial institution and I just go all tech, all I'm doing is asking myself, do I want to compete against the Amazons of the world? Because that's where you're going to end up. And you can't. You're never going to have enough of a budget to be able to have a mobile site as good as a B of A or a Chase. So that brick and mortar piece of it, I think it's an expensive billboard, but it's a billboard that's got to be there to say, hey, look, we're part of this market. We live in this market. This is our community, and we're here to serve you. However that is, whether it is because you have an enhanced drive-up ITMs, or hey, come on inside and we have a cookie for you and coffee, or whatever it is. You have to create your brand, and that brand, to me, for a community financial institution, has to have legs locally. Just has to.
Yeah, Neil, if we were doing this interview in person, I would hug you, because that is a perfect answer. From one heterosexual man to another heterosexual man, I give you, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I don't want to get any crap, from people
Seinfeld
watching
episode. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But your answer, and for the audience's edification, this is the first time I've had the pleasure of meeting Neil and actually having a conversation with him, and you answered it almost exactly in the way that I've been telling clients for at least 10 years.
That's because you're a smart man, Ken.
Thanks, Neil. I knew it was wise to have you on the show. But from a case study perspective, based on what you said, I did some work, over a decade ago with Schools First Credit Union. Anybody in the credit union world will understand that name. I believe they're still one of the top 5 largest in the country. I think first or second largest in the state of California. I think they run 1 and 2 with Golden One. But I remember it was interesting because they were very strategic about their branches in terms of where they were located, in a highway with their signage and so forth. And one of those reasons was because of the billboard aspect of it. And now this isn't even a community financial institution. This is a very narrow niche with, then it was just Southern California. I think today they cover teachers throughout the whole state. But they were very focused on having those branches, even small branches, in a very specific place. And they did studies. They would have people that would say things like, oh, there's my bank, and point to Schools First, which happens to be a small 2-person branch 2 miles from their home. But if you look at their record, they hadn't actually walked in and done a transaction in 20 months.
Right.
But they understood the strategic importance of putting those branches out there. If you're a community bank and or a community credit union, I think that still holds true, that you don't necessarily need to have 18 branches in a 5-mile square area, but strategically, having 1 or 2 well-placed ones, even if they're small, makes good branding sense to me. Did I kind of capture that, or did I go off the rails there?
No. That's absolutely it. And we talk about that a lot my background prior to Structure First was I was a banker, and I've worked for a community bank, and I've worked for a large, multinational bank. And the difference is obviously the budgets are enormously different. So, a B of A can build 3 branches and they can swing and miss, and that doesn't even move the needle. But a community financial institution does not have that luxury. So they need to be strategic, and they need to think about what they're doing. How much space do they really need? And who are they trying to serve? What the membership really needs. And if you do all that, and as you mentioned, a strategy, you got to have a strategy. You have to think about what you're doing, be strategic, and then go implement it. And we've had fun doing it for our credit union and community bank clients. And that's, we one of the luxuries that we've had is our management group has worked in financial institutions. So we get the blocking and tackling of banking has not really changed in the past 100 years, right? And I say this all the time to my friends when I'm at a party or whatever. They're like, "Ah, you build bank buildings for like, it's a niche business." But the one thing that's interesting is they are all selling the same product. Now, yeah, I know the products are slightly different up and down the street, but not really that much. If you have a Samsung phone versus an Apple phone, those are two different phones, right? They're two different manufacturers. I know they do the same thing, but there's a lot of different functionality. But for the banking side, they're pretty much doing the same thing. So how are you differentiating yourself? Through the brand?
Yeah, through the brand and through the experience. Somebody should do a YouTube show on that. Hey,
yeah. We actually call it we actually call it, how a three-legged stool has more base than four legs, right? If you have a three-legged stool, but the three legs have to be solid, and that's environment, employees, and technology. And those are the three things that we talk about, creating that stool so that it's really stable. I think those three things are very, very important. And if you miss on one, then it's not that healthy.
Yeah, no, I love your point in that I always say too that if you have unhappy employees, it is almost impossible. Not impossible. I've seen it done in very, very rare occasion, but it's almost impossible to have happy, satisfied customers, members, clients if you don't have this part working. And to bring it back to the building itself, the brick and mortar, and I know a lot of people are working from home right now, but some people aren't. And I just, from personal experience, I remember working in a business in the late 90s, which was awesome, had a terrific culture. And then we did a merger, and that culture basically went to hell. But it was hell for the last 2 years that I was there. I won't make any bones about that. But a small period of time, we moved to a brand new spanking building. And it was gorgeous, and it was laid out like everybody wanted and so forth. And for a short time, I would say for a good 2 or 3 months, we kind of leveraged that employee experience to somewhat of a better culture. Now, eventually management screwed that up because they didn't understand, the abilities of engaging and so forth. But my point is, that environment, which includes the building, does play an important role, rather than going to some 80-year-old hole that, where half the toilets work and, you're putting stuff together with duct tape. To be able to walk from a nice office and to, a coffee area, staging area that looks beautiful and is clean and is brand new, it does do something for the culture and makes you want to be there. Have you experienced that as well with the branches and the buildings you've put in place?
Oh, for sure.
Now a word from our sponsor, Bader Training and Consulting. BTC has recently partnered with the Success Corps to offer the Podcast for Business Success package. Launching a podcast allows your business to engage directly with your established audience, strengthening an existing bond while simultaneously developing future relationships with prospects who they may have never done business with or met otherwise. Ken Bader and Sean Douglas utilize branding, culture, and strategy to increase engagement between company and customer by launching your uniquely branded, strategically designed podcast, fostering customer relations and business growth. Ken and Sean have hosted over 1,000 podcast episodes across multiple shows and channels. You can watch live, in person, or virtually as they speak at most podcast events around the country, highlighting their expertise as icons of influence in the podcasting space. Ken and Sean not only teach the art of podcasting, but are well-known and respected practitioners, launching dozens of top-rated shows between them and their clients. Ken is also a frequent contributor to Podcast Magazine. Rather than launching your podcast on your own, Wouldn't it make sense to have not one, but two icons of influence teach you how? Of course it would. So harness the power of your past to launch your future with a perfectly branded podcast. Contact BTC at info@btcinc.net today with podcast package in the subject line for more information today.
And actually, there's a story that's very related to that. There was a university credit union that was really struggling attracting kids from their local. I mean, they're the university credit union, yet they're not getting employees from the university.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
That would be a problem, right? But part of the reason that was a problem is because their locations, not to call somebody's kid ugly, were terrible. They were bad. And so imagine you're at a university, the student center's new, the living spaces now are all new. I mean, we've all been on campuses, they're all, tricked out, right? And now all of a sudden you're going to try to attract talent to your organization and put them in some dark, dingy, basement, basically. It's not going to happen. And so, yes, I think just as much as for the customer experience, the employee experience, I mean, we're all fighting for good talent and good people. And again, you look around, look at the restaurants you go to, the hotels you go to. I mean, experience is a big part of what we do and in life. And so the thing that's always difficult for financial institutions is they grew up, anybody in a financial institution has grown up with a very fiscally conservative view, right? When you're running a financial institution,
Usually.
risk is always the big thing. So they never want to spend and outkick their coverage because of the risk involved. But sometimes you have to look at it and think bigger picture. And quite frankly, the way they're allowed to account for some of these, renovations and headquarters and branches and all that, it's just a strategy, and you gotta enact it. But you have to start somewhere, and sometimes it just feels very large in scope to take on that project. But I think that the financial institutions that have made those accommodations already, you've seen the growth, and you'll continue to see the growth with those that are willing to jump into the deeper end of the pool, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've noticed this too, working in the financial space for over 30 years now.
Yeah.
Boy, what's with this old guy doing a show?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've noticed that too, that a lot of times financial risk is either takes precedence or is the only risk looked at rather than brand risk, which is very, very real. Or culture risk. If all your good employees are leaving, that creates a bit of an issue. And with brand risk, funny thing is I'm working with a client right now, and it's just about how might we change our name? Not even the building itself, where we're talking about the brand risk of changing the name versus not changing it and how to change it, and understanding what all the risks are of all of those options. But to get back to Structure First, what makes Structure First different for all of those financial institutions out there that, hopefully, God willing, we'll be out of this Delta variant COVID insanity, someday, and we can concentrate back on a strategy. And for those financial institutions whose strategy is to put branches and brick and mortar where it makes sense, what makes Structure First different? Why would they want to come to you over anybody else out there?
Well, so when I left the banking, I ended up going to work for a design build firm that focused only on financial institutions. And design build is a mechanism to obviously do these projects, but it can be a very expensive way of doing it. And when 2008 happened, coming out of that situation, we put our banker's hat back on and realized that, okay, we're going to have to kind of break this down to zero and then build it back up to the way we would have wanted to do business. And by that, I mean, we help our clients mitigate risk as it relates to designing and building these buildings. And how we do that is really we act as an owner's rep to them, and by being an owner's representative, we're sitting on the same side of the table as our client. So when we go out to the market, we're trying to find an architect that makes sense to design. Could be a local architect, could be some national architects that we have relationships with, but we basically put everybody in somewhat of a competitive situation. Most of our clients do not have a robust financial or facilities department. Okay, so yeah, they've got people that are maintaining the buildings and doing the things that need to be done from a maintenance standpoint, but the actual walking through from start to finish of a building project, it often falls on the table or desk of somebody who just has a little bit of capacity, or I'm the head of retail, now I've got to do this, but you've got other jobs to do. And this project or these projects take an enormous amount of time. And there's just complications. I mean, it's construction, it's design and construction, and there's always something going on that requires some level of expertise that we feel like, we bring to the table because we've been in it for so long, and we've seen the things that areas where change orders happen, or design, for example, even in our visioning sessions when we're sitting down to talk design, because we did work in financial institutions, we'll ask a couple extra questions of, do you really need the space? Because if you can do everything in 1,000 square feet less, at if it's $500 a square foot, 1,000 square feet, that's $500,000, and that matters. That can go somewhere else. That can go towards your mobile app, or that can go towards hiring 7 more people that make sense, or whatever. So we look at it as we just take a little bit of risk off the table for our clients. And time is a great, and certainly in the world that we're living in today, you're already kind of maxed out in what you can handle. The other thing that we provide is we're a variable cost option. So we're there to do a project, and then you're not paying for Neil Cool when he's not around. Then we go away, and then it's a year later or 2 years later, if you got another project, then we jump back in. And it's been for our clients, I think it's been an eye opener compared to the design build model. It's significantly, can be 20 to 30% less at times. And the other side of it is using local people. So you're using a local general contractor to build. When we were with a national design build firm, we're doing a project in California, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, that makes really no sense. We're the general contractor all the way out in Southern California. There are plenty of good local GCs out there that can do the job. And so what we do is we vet them out, we manage them for the bank or credit union, and we just basically do the project from soup to nuts. But basically, I say it tongue in cheek, when I come on board, I want a golf shirt from the credit union or bank, and we're an employee for a little while.
Yeah, and plus, if you got to come out to California, there's no Skyline chili out here.
There is no Skyline chili out there. I can have it flown out. Sometimes I need to lay off the Skyline chili anyway, to be honest with you.
That's okay. And there's no what is it, Holdman's Donuts?
Yes.
Is that the thing? See, I'm a big fan of the Cincinnati area. More when I was drinking on the Kentucky side, but that's a story for a completely different show.
There's some good bourbon places over on that side.
Yeah, there are. Sure. But to get back to a point which was really salient that you made was the issue of time. And I unless you've done it before, and personally, I've never been the head man or woman on a construction project. I only know this vicariously. But to go back to that example that I gave a little bit earlier of over 20 years ago, I remember our CFO became basically the full-time manager of this new building project. And I know it took other management's time too, and not blaming the culture problems on this new building, but that was the focus. It was even so much, well, okay, there's poor morale. Well, let's get this building done and then maybe we'll deal with that, because this is, yeah, I mean, the CFO basically slept there in the old office and trying to get this done. So to be able to have an expert to be able to take some of this off of your plate and save you time, that is huge. And I love also what you said is that, do you really need 1,500 square feet? I mean, everything, even in personal lives, everybody's going to downsizing and going to smaller.
Correct.
Can you get done, in 1,000 square feet, what you want to do in 1,500 square feet? I mean, that's a great point.
Yeah, there's that side of it. And then the other side is if you are on the headquarters side, don't build it just for today. I mean, let's say you are going to merge in 2 more credit unions over the next 10 years, then have some foresight into, and I know obviously we're in a different time period of people working, kind of, that's a hybrid model, but let's just say that goes back to a little bit more of the way it was in 2019 of people actually in the office. And it'll, that's a running thing that'll go in ebbs and flows. I think there are things that'll come out of this that people will always be more flexible as far as work environments. But I think the team concept and being around each other and those types of things, I don't think that necessarily will go away. It's just been modified for a bit, but our responsibility is to basically look after these projects and try to maximize the value that these are big capital investments. So the needle can move one way or the other. And so all we're trying to do is help our clients, maximize the investment.
Yeah.
So it's been good.
Yeah. What you pointed out, especially with the headquarters, and I do believe there is a place, branding, culture, and strategy wise, for people working remotely, working from home, and having that technology basis. And GoToMeeting and Skype and all these other things can be, frankly, in building a culture. I think we miss a critical part in not having, especially management teams, in the same place, at least 3-4 days out of the week, because you miss that time when you walk out of a meeting and say, you know what, I like what you said. I didn't mention it in the meeting because it wasn't relevant, but it got me to thinking, what if we did? And you're talking about that at the coffee pot, you're talking about that by the water cooler, you're talking about it at the fridge, with the 2-week-old tuna fish sandwich smelling up the place. I mean, there is a place for that. And I think that's where, having the right structure, having the right building, having that space for that is still very important.
Agree. But well, before you and I came online, we were talking about relationships, right? Mm-hmm. And those that happens through being around people on a daily basis and kind of fighting the fight together, and
right.
Rowing in the same direction. You can use all the analogies you want here, but
right.
That's part of it, and you have to put people in those situations, whether it's a headquarters, whether it's a branch, whether it's an ops center, whatever it is. So.
Yeah, there's something to be said for 3 people commiserating and being pissed off that somebody just microwave fish in the lunchroom. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Now you know who's on your side. That way you know who's on your team.
Yeah, who the hell made fish in here? That's one of the reasons why I'm glad I work from home. Anyhow, be that as it may, I hate fish. Some of my audience already knows that. I understand that you recently formed a CUSO, and for those folks that aren't familiar with the credit union space in the audience, it simply stands for Credit Union Service Organization. It's kind of an offshoot, separate business. Tell us about the CUSO and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so the CUSO was really put together as a result of a long-term relationship with Scott Arney, the CEO of Chicago Patrolmen's Credit Union. And basically, Scott and I have talked about this for a long time, and really what it revolved around is he's done projects in his past and back to the time and money factor. And I told him, obviously, we've done projects for credit unions for 10 years now, and my background previous, but the bond was formed basically to leverage both of our experiences and take this out to the market and help other credit unions in the capacity that we're in as an owner's rep, and really formalize that understanding of what we do, how we can help the credit union through these projects. And those things take some time to put together, but I think we're really excited about the opportunity to take this nationally in scope and
Nice.
and leverage years of our experience, plus obviously the credit union's experience. And it's obviously the CUSO model is a neat model to begin with, and it doesn't it's not something you would see in every industry, but obviously because credit unions leverage each other's talents and play nice in the sandbox, or however you want to put that. I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of take this to the next spot and really get out the model of acting as an owner's rep to our clients.
Yeah, interesting. It is, not having been or worked in your space, it does seem like an interesting and a differentiating model than what a lot of other branch builders, if that's even the term to use, would approach it.
Yeah, and the models are there's nothing. The national design build model is a model that is there. It's a model that will be there. It's different in the fact that you're buying somebody who is the designer and the builder, and they may not be local. Okay. Then there's the other model is I'm going to go find an architect locally, and I'm going to go find a general contractor locally, and I'm going to manage it as the credit union myself. And then our model is a bit of a hybrid in the fact that we can be national in scope, but we're going to hire a local general, maybe a local architect, and we're just going to help stitch the whole quilt together for the credit union. And again, they've got a credit union to run. They get to do that, and we help them with this. They're making still all the decisions. CEOs and C-suite is still involved in all the decision making. It's just that we're kind of taking out all the noise before those decisions need to be made to maximize their time.
Yeah, interesting. So you're kind of the conductor or the maestro, and not the songwriter.
For sure. Yeah, I've used every analogy out there. That one where we're the offensive coordinator, right?
Yeah.
So you got the head coach as the CEO, but we're the O coordinator. Let's get the guys out on the field.
Yeah.
Let's run the plays. Let's help them. We'll call some plays, but they're still making every decision. And so a lot of times in the old design build model, they weren't making all the decisions. They're getting a number, and then all the decisions are made after that. Okay, so and the number can be costly, 20 to 30% higher, and that's real money.
Yeah.
So,
since I can't play an instrument, I like the football analogy much better. You said it in a much better way than I could did, obviously.
Sure.
As we kind of wrap this discussion up, I'll ask more of a global question. Here we're sitting here in the throes of the Delta variant. Some may say this is the beginning of something else bad and worse, or this is kind of the last shot before the real end of the pandemic. Depends on who you talk to. in your thoughts, not only in financial institutions, but retail in general, what do you see? What is retail in terms of brick and mortar look like over the next 10 years?
Well, I think it's continuing on. You said it. Everybody, the spaces aren't any bigger. They're going to continue to get smaller. The traffic's not going to be there the way it ever was. Whatever it is, right? Whether it's restaurant size, whether it's hotels, there's a movement towards a smaller footprint, right? A more changes the experience, right? Rather than of course old spaces are going to be old spaces. You go to the Greenbrier, it's still the Greenbrier. You're going to go to places like that still have that feel. But if it's new retail, it's going to be smaller, and it's going to have less traffic. But I think the thing stands true is if somebody's going to walk into your space, it needs to feel right. I use this statistic all the time. And in 1995, somebody would go to the bank 4 times a month.
Mm-hmm.
And now they'll be lucky if they go there 4 times a year, right? So, but the experience has to be there so that you walk into your financial institution or you walk into any place and say, man, that feels right. That's who we are. That's what our brand is. That's what we want to have our customers remember us by. So I think that's going to continue. And I think, again, it's just a strategy of what do you want to be? The other thing I think that will continue, and this on the brand side, is these are very branded spaces. You got to brand. You got to be branded. I should be able to be blindfolded, walk into one of these spaces, be unblindfolded, and know that I'm at XYZ Federal Credit Union or whatever, right? And see it digitally, see it environmentally, graphic wise, whatever it is, and then obviously seeing it in the employees. And so that's that. I don't see that changing. I mean, no matter what goes on with the pandemic, I think that'll continue.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm pleased to see in the community banking and especially the credit union space that more and more people, especially these younger executive CEOs, seem to get that a little bit easier or a little bit more smoothly, if that's the proper phrase to use. I can't even tell you how many credit unions I walked into in the 90s, and it was like a VFW hall with a bulletin board. I'm selling my car, I'm selling my furniture, I'm selling my wife, and brochures of all different kinds strewn all over the place. It's like, nothing bad against VFW halls. Probably great for a fish fry. I just don't want to do my financial business there.
And we've seen it, obviously the credit union side has been much more aggressive there. Where we're seeing it, interestingly, is even on the community bank side, right? Community financial, community bank that's been around for 120 years, and they're starting to get, we need to change with the times here. So,
it's definitely time. And it's definitely time for me to ask you one last question, possibly the most important one, which is for our audience out there that wants to build 8 bank branches in 8 weeks. How do they find you? How do they find Structure First out there?
Well, you can find us, our website's www.sf.services, and there's no .com there. It's funny, we did that because we thought we were out kicking, everybody by doing the .services thing, and now we just get emails and say .services.com because it's just kind of funny. But you can find us there. Obviously, this CUSO partnership, we're going to end up at the NACUSO convention in Las Vegas in November, and I think we'll see quite a few people there. And we do regional credit union conventions, and we're doing some speaking engagements for different groups, and so we're out there, and we're looking forward to talking.
Awesome. Well, I looked forward to and thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. This was a great conversation, and really appreciate you being here, Neil.
Same, Ken. Really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again.
All right.
And thank you to all of you. And here's hoping, as always, that you're branding the experience at a very high level for all those you serve.